Hello and welcome to this edition of the Smalltown Sportstalk podcast. Welcome to ST Squared. I'm Andrew Willett with Jonah Freeman. Jonah, how are we doing today?
Even better after the other night when Aaron Baines absolutely went off. I feel like that's a good way to start this episode because that was a stat line that deserves it for sure.
Is Aaron Baines ahead of Devin Booker in your favorite player rankings?
Definitely not, but he's definitely the best player in the league right now.
Well, we've got a great episode today, episode 3 of ST Squared. Episode where actually, of course, we're talking about NBA, but we're going to get into some college basketball with March Madness right around the corner.
It's the best time of the year.
It is
the
a
best time of the year.
Phenomenal time.
NBA playoff races are starting to heat up, and then you have March Madness. Like every single college basketball game is fun to watch this time of year.
Could it get any better? But we're going to start out with our good old NBA talk, beginning with Steph Curry's return. We don't want to move on from like such a phenomenal season that we've had so far this year. But we're going to look ahead a little bit with the Golden State Warriors because obviously this is not their year. They are 15-49. Steph Curry has played probably 5 games, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors have not looked very good this year, but when we've seen Steph, he's looked pretty good.
And it's probably for the best that they have not looked very good because
all they're going to do is add to an already stacked core for next year.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, obviously, for the fan base, maybe it definitely is hard to watch. But when you're the ownership, you're looking at this and you're saying, now that Steph's back, we're somewhat competitive right now. And losing now is going to help us in the future. So I think this is nothing but good for the Warriors, in my honest opinion.
Well, the Warriors, you're going to look at it next year. They're going to add a top 5 pick in the draft, top 3, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson to the mix with a healthy Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins.
Right.
So I'm interested to see what they can do, but I also think they should weigh their options a little bit here because they've got Minnesota's top 3 protected first-round pick.
That's another thing. They have a lot of flexibility on what they want to do with possibly trading picks in the draft. You know, they have a lot of...
They could combine that 2020 first-round pick of theirs and Minnesota's 2021.
100%, yeah.
And I don't know who they would look at this moment in time, but I think they should really consider their options before they go and they take someone like a James Wiseman or a Anthony Edwards in the draft.
So a potential suitor, honestly, I would hate to see this, and I don't know if he's necessarily at that value yet. But what about someone like Kelly Oubre on the Warriors? For the right price, with Mikal Bridges' good play in Phoenix, that could be something Phoenix is willing to do. And so someone like Kelly Oubre, I think, would fit in perfectly with that Warriors core. I think that'd be fun to watch.
I feel like they, in my opinion, they need a bigger guy.
100%, yeah.
Like Durant was a 7-footer, so you can play small because he's like a 7-foot guard right there.
Right.
I think you need something like that, maybe a big man entirely, but that can also stretch it out. That's why they had so much interest in Karl Anthony Towns. Of course, the whole league had interest in Karl Anthony Towns.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
He'd do everything.
Right.
So they ended up getting Andrew Wiggins out of that, and we'll see what they do with that. But
I think both sides can look at that and be happy because Wiggins hasn't played incredible, but he's shown signs that he's going to be a reliable player next year. And you put someone like that with fully loaded stars, that can completely change the look of someone's career. So we could see Wiggins flourish in a whole new way next year, which could be scary for the league again.
And that's what the Warriors are looking at. They're trying to get guys who can grow with their core.
In their system. Exactly.
Go with their core to go be a championship team as soon as next season. And so they've got Steph, they've got Klay. Wiggins is a piece that whether they like it or not, he's with them. Draymond Green, I think Kevin Looney's a solid player. Eric Pastel was a good find.
Oh, yes. I think a lot of these Villanova guys are coming out and proving to be studs.
I would agree.
Just like I mentioned, Mikal Bridges, man, he has been on fire.
And they just traded one of their.
And they know how to win. They know how to win.
Steve Kerr.
A lot of these guys are.
Coach.
Yeah, and so when you pair someone like Steve Kerr, who's shown he can win with winners, and then you're bringing in guys all around the league from Villanova, who a lot of these people that are coming in from the last 4 years are 2-time national champs.
Yep.
So winning, they expect winning. It's not like someone that's coming from one of those lower teams. It's stat padding, in college. Like,
Yep.
they're coming in like they were awesome players on
And
awesome
they know
teams.
how to win.
Exactly.
And so I looking forward to the Warriors next year. And honestly, didn't Steph bash? That was pretty nice. And like you said, for the fans,
Right.
you could feel the energy as soon as he was
Oh, yeah.
back. He struggled a little bit.
Right off the bat, and then what?
23,
Yeah.
6 boards, and 7 assists to only 1 turnover.
Right.
Struggled a little shooting the ball, but that energy that Steph plays with, that you could feel it
Oh yeah.
in the Chase Center.
And it really is good to have someone like that back from injury, because one of the main focuses of this episode, NBA-wise, is going to be how injuries are affecting the playoff race, which is what we're about to get into, because there are so many big key players in some of these, like the West's race for the 8 spot. Like there are a lot of key players hurt that teams need to get healthy if they want to really push for it. So I'll let you go off. You can mention a couple guys. We'll discuss
Well,
them.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think Golden State's ceiling is next season?
Next season, I expect nothing less than what we did before all the injuries went down, honestly.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson.
You've got a much more loaded Western Conference.
Right. I think sometimes, and I don't necessarily know the severity of it, but I think people do undervalue Klay Thompson at times. Like,
Yeah.
dude is a stud. He's going to come in and give you 20 a game and absolutely light it up from the three-point line.
And he made Steph into what he is.
Exactly. They complement each other so nicely. So then, again, you put Andrew Wiggins next to him. You put a healthy Draymond Green next to him.
And then you see what you can do with those draft picks.
Exactly. With possibly a couple really good young players. I hope and I expect them to contend right off the bat again next year.
And you've got the Lakers and the Clippers, who really have this year and next year. That's their window.
Right.
The Warriors have more than that.
The Clippers basically traded away all their draft stock for a long time.
Yep, and same with the Lakers to
Right.
get Anthony Davis. So that'll be interesting to see. And of course, with the Lakers, LeBron James being so as old as he is in year 17, 35 years old. So interesting to see what the Warriors turn into. We looked at the Andrew Wiggins trade. Now we want to take a peek and look at the Heat. The Miami Heat made a huge trade at the deadline, trading it was Justice Winslow, James Johnson, and Deion Waiters, some of those terrible contracts for them.
Right.
And we thought it was a great trade for Iguodala, Jay Crowder, and Solomon Hill.
Both sides got some solid pieces there that they can work with for a little bit. 100%.
I would agree, but you have seen the Miami Heat struggle a little bit recently.
Which is surprising to me because
they were even struggling before the trade.
Right. Really, and I'm not just saying this because, being here, we hear a lot about the Pacers, but it really kind of feels like after the whole Jimmy Butler, TJ Warren's criminal thing, they've kind of fallen off a little bit.
They have not been doing whatever stat it was. They've lost probably more than half of their games.
Right. And speaking of injuries, Tyler Hero's missed a little bit of time.
That's true.
But at the same
He's an
time,
important
you also can't look at that and be so reliant on a rookie that comes off the bench. Like, you're going to have to look at guys and they have depth. They're going to have to look at their roster and say, you got to step up,
Mm-hmm.
because they can't sit back and. This is one of those years as wide open as is. Playoff seeding is important. And just because one of your bench role players goes down, you can't use that as an excuse.
Since that drubbing that they gave to the 76ers at the beginning of February, they have not been doing so hot. Let me count this up. 1-6, 2-6. Let's see here.
Not good. Not good. Whatever the number is, it's not good. 100% not good.
They've been able to pick up a couple of wins recently, but so I'll be interested to see. They did beat Milwaukee recently, beat them by quite a few points, and actually, Bam Adebayo is the perfect guy to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yes, 100%. But I think the thing when you look at Miami right now and they're struggling, and then you got to also look a little up in the Midwest. A team like Indiana's starting to get the rhythm back.
Yes, they are.
What, the last 10, they've won 8 now, I think, the last 10 games, something like that. And I hate injuries, and we're going to talk a lot about them. But I think the Jeremy Lamb injury could maybe be a good thing for Indiana.
Really?
Because Aaron Holiday was playing incredible to start the year. And when Depot came back, you had Lamb and Depot when Depot came back, all the minutes kind of changed. You started seeing people like Edmund Sumner, Aaron Holiday, McConnell, all their minutes were kind of diminished a little bit. And now that we've seen the need for those guard minutes, I think Holiday's starting to step back up. And then literally it looks like they're enjoying the game a lot more. Because for a while you had some of that negative energy on the end of the bench. And I don't blame him, but Holiday's got to be upset.
It's hard to put a guy like Victor Oladipo back into your rotation.
Right.
Especially coming off an injury and not expect guys to be a little upset.
Right. Because they know it's going to happen at some point, but it's like you don't necessarily know how you're going to handle it.
Uh-huh.
So
you want what's best for the team just the same.
Exactly. So
and when Victor's struggling, it's hard.
Right, not Miami. Victor is starting to pick it up. There have been several games he's 19, 18 points, and Miles Turner has also been stepping up. He's hit several clutch shots in that little stretch where they've been playing good, always playing good defense. I think Miami has to watch out because if they keep slipping up, the Pacers are going to catch them, and it's not going to be hard because they're 2 games back right now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So Miami for sure has to be careful, or the Pacers will catch them.
And the Pacers playing great basketball. You were right.
And one thing that could get even better in Indiana.
Yeah.
Recently,
you mentioned having fun.
Recently, we've been hearing Lance Stevenson may be returning. Which would make my year. That would make my year.
If I am a Pacers fan, I absolutely do not want that. I do not understand that.
Why?
No one else wanted
it. You don't want to see him on your shoulders.
Absolutely not.
You're ridiculous. All right, next injury, let's go. We're moving on from that because you're going to make me upset.
So the Pacers are doing well. Let's take a peek at the Houston Rockets since their trade.
I'm telling you, man, these last couple of games have been rough, and I knew this would happen.
Okay.
Small ball.
Okay. No, I think they have been easily better since that trade. They are a better team.
I could agree with that, but we're starting to see some of these downfalls of small ball.
Just a few games.
And it's a 3-point oriented game now, obviously. So every game to a certain point is you live or die from the 3-point line. But strictly now, that is your only option in Houston.
Not true. You have Russell Westbrook.
That is your only option in Houston.
No way.
Yes.
You are downgrading. This guy was an MVP. He is now playing his best basketball of his career. They've been on this 4-game skid. He's missed a game. Okay, no big deal. All right, they lost to a really good Clippers team, and then just a few duds across the line. They should have beat the Knicks that few nights ago. I'm not worried about Houston.
Well, I am, and partially now, like we just said, especially in the Western Conference, seeding's a big deal. The Thunder just passed them up in the seeds in the standings.
It's true.
And the team like Thunder, they're kind of one of those consistent moving teams that seem like they're going to win a lot of games.
Thunder just beat my Celtics.
Yeah.
No, but Houston was a team that we were talking about possibly getting up to that 2nd seed, and they are nowhere close right now. That race out west is absolutely insane.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Houston's not going to miss the playoffs, but they could easily wind up being the 7th seed.
Right. Honestly, getting to the playoffs, it's a whole different animal in the playoffs. So we can sit here and talk about 3-point shooting and all that, but the playoffs is where it's going to matter, and the playoff is a whole different feel when it comes to some of these guys because Houston's relying right now on a couple bloomers like McLemore. He hasn't been someone that's in a typical rotation before this year.
But he has played a phenomenal.
Exactly.
He's had a great year.
So you're going to have to hope that people like that can keep that up in the playoffs, or it's not going to be pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's got to be hard on someone like McLemore, who's, obviously he's grinded for that.
It's true.
He's had to work his way up to that point. But at the same time, it's almost like a rookie feel, I feel like, for him, because he had some high expectations. And so he's never been in that situation where he's going to be relied on to come out and score, And so it's going to be interesting to see, for sure.
Just looking at that West race for the 8th seed now, moving on, you've got the Grizzlies, who currently hold the spot, and they have a 4-game lead
Wasn't it just 2-something the other day? I think it was a 2-game lead, and now they've kind of expanded that back out a little bit.
They're sitting exactly at 500, 32-32 as we sit here right now. The Pelicans, 4 games back in the 9 seed. The Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, I made a tweet about that the other day.
You did.
It's surprising to see that.
They were really competing with Toronto last night.
Right.
But they are also 4 games back. And then the Trailblazers and the Spurs.
And it's frustrating to me as a Suns fan that we dropped a couple.
Also right there.
Like, we're 6 games back, I think.
Yep.
Out of the break, we dropped a couple games we should not have dropped. And now you look back at it, I mean.
Well, that's the case for all of these teams.
Right. 2 wins in a row. We just beat the Bucks. Obviously, they didn't have Giannis. But the Bucks, I think Middleton had 39 or something last night.
Oh, yeah. That's a phenomenal team regardless.
Like, it seems like, I don't know, I don't like the fact that it's almost like we get out of this playoff race and it's like pressure's lifted. Let's go win games. Like, why can't we just play free like that all the time? Because it costs us now, and it looks like we're starting to be one of those teams. Like, really, we haven't been fully healthy, and we're still not. I mean, Ayton's been out these last 2 games we've lost. So you look at someone like Baines who's starting to pick it up after his injury. He's playing.
And you got no Oubre.
You got no Oubre, and there's a chance if we could hang in there, he could be back at the end of the year. So it really hurts me to know how much potential we had in regards to possibly getting a playoff spot. But again, injuries, they've kind of thrown that away.
And for all of these Western Conference teams, it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 6-team race for that 8th spot.
Yeah.
You've got 18 games left in the season. And you look at the Suns, you're 6 games back. I'm sorry, I don't think you're making that up.
Oh, no. There's no way we get to that 8th spot in Phoenix.
Nope.
I mean, I think in years past at this point, from a fan standpoint, you kind of looked at it and you're like, all right, it's time to like maybe lose some games, better your draft stock. But I think now, like, we're to the point we got to stop tanking and build a culture. So, like, I don't want to see us give up and lose games, but, like, it's going to be interesting to see what approach they take.
That race for the 8th seed, I really think Memphis has it locked up. They just do, in my opinion.
Right.
And it's surprising to me because no Jaren Jackson Jr., and they are still playing some great basketball.
Yeah, and it looked like for a while the Pelicans were going to be that team to beat.
It did, but they lost a few in a row.
Exactly. The Grizzlies have maintained that spot, and they've won when it mattered. I mean, they beat the Lakers the other night in a game that almost was like a sure lock-in for the Lakers.
That somewhat makes you think, though, doesn't it, that the Lakers get absolutely pounded by Memphis, but then come out the next night and LeBron goes off against the Pelicans.
Right.
I don't think the Lakers want to see New Orleans in the first round.
Yeah.
They don't want that hype around it, being Anthony Davis's former team. And I just think the Pelicans would be a better matchup than the Grizzlies in the first round.
Well, the Pelicans are one of those teams that if you get them in the playoffs, they could be
scary.
Seriously dangerous. Lonzo Ball has been balling out.
You have to think the Pelicans would be a playoff team if Zion is healthy the whole year.
100%. 100%.
So we think the Grizzlies are going to hold on to that spot. Moving on, let's see here. Let's talk about a few more injuries and head on over to everyone's favorite place to talk about, the Philadelphia 76ers.
I hate those guys. I hate them.
Obviously, we can talk about, we don't know how great of a match that is for them, or between Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. But we aren't seeing those two play together because they are both out with injuries, and they have dropped down to the 6th seed. They are 5-5 in their last 10.
Yeah, I think luckily for them, the 6th seed is about as far as they're going to drop with the separation they had gained. So, I mean, obviously...
Well, the top 6 in the Eastern Conference versus 7 through 15 is just remarkable how much better those 6 teams are.
And even then, Orlando and Brooklyn, they're both at 29 wins. Then again, there's another 6-game drop down to Washington and 9. And so you could honestly even say that you got your playoff teams.
Yep.
It's just a matter of who's where. And like we said, injuries, again, they're going to play a big part in that. Because like I mentioned earlier, Indiana could come up take that 3 spot. Boston, obviously, they're going to be able to make a run for that 2 spot if they can keep kind of holding things together. Kemba's not been necessarily, as of recently, just like, I don't feel like he's kind of maintained that hot start. But at the same time, like every guy is not going to be able to just maintain greatness throughout the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
So Kemba's going to get that back. I'm not concerned about that. I think that is probably the most interesting spot in the East, is that race for the 2 between Toronto and Boston.
And we'll take a peek at that right now, because my Boston Celtics, we'll get into my Boston Celtics segment right now. What do you say, Jonah?
I'm fine with that.
Are you kidding me? These last 4 days, it's ever since that Houston game. That Houston game at the end of February, we had just beaten we got a good win at Portland, good win at Utah. We
Give
have
Carson
Houston
Edwards
at home.
minutes.
Shut up, Jonah. No way. Giving Carson Edwards minutes, that's what gave Karis LeVert 51 points the other night as they lost to Brooklyn. That was a horrible loss for Boston in overtime. Jason Tatum came back, had a good win over Cleveland.
Can we pause your segment real quick? You
Please.
just said something. What the heck, Brooklyn?
Yes, how have we not gotten into this?
When I heard you mention that, it just hit me. I was like, we gotta stop that and talk about Brooklyn really quick.
Kenny Atkinson. Are you kidding me?
In my honest opinion, he is not someone we mentioned the other day in our second episode, but he was getting up there in the Coach of the Year race, in my opinion.
He's
with the
played
injuries,
a phenomenal role.
And what he did last year, the injuries he's had this year. How? And you're hearing rumors about potentially being KD and Kyrie maybe not liking
so much.
him in that system.
They hadn't even played for him.
Right.
Kyrie's played less than half a year.
If that's the case, I say go get D'Lo back. Bring in someone who wants to play for that system.
KD and Kyrie tell him because they love Brooklyn's culture, and they're just tearing it down as we speak.
Exactly. They literally just tore it down because Kenny Atkinson was a big part of that culture.
I think he's an outstanding coach.
100%. 100%.
I don't think you get rid of him.
I mean, he's going to be somewhere this offseason.
If I am the Chicago Bulls, if I'm the New York Knicks, I think he would be a phenomenal fit over in Chicago with Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. and Kobe White. They've got a lot of young talent, and you watched what he did with Brooklyn.
Right. A team like Cleveland, too. And I know they've kind of...
True.
I
like JB Bickerstaff.
I was going to say, they have bigger staff, and they kind of established before when Beeline came that Bickerstaff was going to be their guy after Beeline. But I feel like Atkinson
they've been
could
playing
be a
well
good
under
fit
Bickerstaff.
in Cleveland, I feel like.
Yeah.
Some of those young guards they have there.
It's true.
But, I mean, obviously that's not going to happen. They like Bickerstaff, and with good reason.
Yeah, they've been playing harder.
They just beat the good Spurs team last night.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good game to watch.
In overtime. So, I don't know. Kenny Atkinson, he's going to have a handful of teams wanting him.
Exactly. I think if you're him, you got to look at it and say, all right.
This is probably better for him.
All right.
Although, I did hear his kids were in school in Brooklyn. He was happy there. Things were going really well for him.
I mean, obviously, yeah, the life part of it, definitely. Anytime someone has to move like that.
It's part of the business.
Again, yeah, exactly what you just said. Part of the business, and we know he's going to be a coach again next season.
Yep.
So it's better. I think it's better to be wanted somewhere rather than not be. And I think that was his thing. It said, when they decided that he was going to be gone, he said, why wait?
Yeah.
So, whatever. Go ahead, get back into your Celtics.
Back into my Celtics. I'm mad, Jonah. I'm really upset. Okay, 4 games. Pretty much the last 5 games have just not been very good for Boston, especially with that race for the 2 seed that you were talking about. Okay, because Toronto, they've been losing a little bit, but they have jumped out to I believe a 3-game lead over the Celtics.
Right.
And the Celtics are going to end up playing a 76ers team in the first round that is dropping to the 6th seed. And we've seen that matchup all year. I guess if the 76ers are healthy, that could be really scary for a Boston team.
Right, that's what I was about to say. That's probably the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Really. I mean,
that 2 seed they were in the race for it. They've struggled with injuries. Tatum, Brown, Hayward, Kemba have all missed games recently. Speaking of that, Jaylen Brown, are the Celtics, they didn't do it without Jaylen Brown. They have been struggling mightily
Yep.
without him. He's been inconsistent shooting, but he has obviously been incredibly important to their success.
100%. Oh yeah.
All right.
That little deal of him and Tatum.
Oh yeah.
That's
gonna be fun to watch for years.
That's what I was about to say. Like, they're so good already. Imagine like 3-4 years down the road.
And looking at what they could be in the playoffs.
Right.
They need all their guys, obviously, and I think they still did it done versus Philly, but that is not what you want in that first round.
No. That's one of those
unless Philly's unhealthy.
possible 7-game series that could really kind of set you up for a bad second round.
Yep. And hopefully they get to that second round where they can play a Toronto team, but I would much rather have that 2 seed. But I just don't see it happening. Toronto's been amazing this year.
Right.
All right, one more thing, NBA talk that I'd like to get into. Giannis obviously is missing a couple games with an injury. Should Milwaukee rest Giannis, and should the Lakers rest LeBron? Jonah.
I think, I hate to say it, my gut, I want to say no, but it's an obvious yes.
Yeah.
Because I think you look at it, I mean, out west, Clippers are still a 2 seed, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Clippers aren't upset about that because they've been resting. So, I feel like, if anything, the Clippers are kind of winning right now.
Oh, yeah.
They're still going to play the 7th seed, which nothing in the West is going to be easy. But then they're going to have a fully ready Kawhi. And when you got LeBron playing every single night, Giannis playing every single night.
To give LeBron some games off.
Yeah.
That's been my mindset this whole year. That LeBron, near the end of the season, give him some time to rest. Okay, because he is, the amount of minutes he has logged on that body of his is insane. Okay, so give him some rest. And if I'm Milwaukee, screw 70 wins. I need Giannis to be healthy. So I'd say go for the 70 wins, but not if it's going to cost Giannis. Okay?
Right. I mean, I hate load management, but I think you mentioned this in one of our previous episodes. Like, I think it's coming for the league. If the schedule is not reduced in a way, I think you're going to see every team start going to it at some point.
Yeah.
So I think
sometimes you just need that.
when you don't have a clear favorite like the Warriors anymore, and I know the Raptors won it last year, but like everyone has to look at themselves and say, we have a chance to win this, and say, what can we do?
So many teams.
What can we do now to help us win it later in the year? Which the load management is where that kind of comes into play, because I hate it. But the Clippers are, every game Kawhi sits, LeBron plays is a plus for the Clippers.
And, well, let's get right into that best in the West, LA v. LA. That was a great game the other night. And LeBron's Lakers were able to pull one out.
I still like Clippers in that. I still like the Clippers.
Yeah.
Mostly because, again, when you get to the playoffs, you kind of need some of the depth. Because, I feel like the 2 LA teams have their established stars that you know are going to perform. LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George, Anthony Davis. You know they're going to be good.
Well, I think that Morris addition was great for both teams.
That is true. They both got a Morris.
And they are each going to play an integral part to their team's success.
Yeah. So I think in the end you have your established stars. It's a matter of what team can do more outside of what's expected, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And you saw that with Avery Bradley the other night.
Right.
Dude went off. Had 6 3-pointers.
Yeah.
So it's going to be those performances in the playoffs that.
I think exactly what you just said. That's like what I was gonna say. Both teams are gonna have to have their Leandro Barbosas of the Warriors when they won it. Like Sean Livingston and Barbosa both were huge in that one year when they won it.
Yep.
And you're gonna have to see a couple of those lower guys on the bench make an impact. And I'm not talking about Caruso. I'm talking about some of the other bench guys.
But we've got our huge Alex Caruso fan in the building here with Jonah.
Absolutely false.
Anyway, thank you so much for the NBA talk. And now we're going to get into a little bit of a conference tournament talk. We've had a few championship games already to decide some early bids for the tournament. As Utah State upset San Diego State in the Mountain West tournament, Ohio Valley tournament, Belmont beat Murray State. In the bid South, Winthrop heading to the bid dance as they beat Hampton. Bradley beat Valparaiso in the Missouri Valley tournament, and in the Atlantic Sun, the Liberty.
Liberty is going to. I'm calling it now. Liberty is going to be one of those 12 seed upsets, and they did it last year, and I think Liberty will do it again this year. They're good. I watched their game against Stetson the other day, and Stetson's one of those young teams that they started hot, backed off a little bit because they're young, and then when Stetson made their run, Liberty was so composed the whole time. Mm-hmm. Liberty or Stetson would get within one, and Liberty would make a big shot the whole time. And they have four? I think they have 4 losses maybe on the year. They're extremely good. So you just mentioned some of those teams that have already punched a ticket. College basketball has been interesting all year with upsets, and it's going to continue to be that way because you're going to have to see some of these bubble teams do something in these major conference tournaments because someone like Northern Iowa in the Missouri Valley, they got knocked off, which means that's one less bubble team that's going to get in because Northern Iowa was good enough to the year that they're in.
Yeah, I think they should get in.
Right. Dan Dawkins just made a good point. I mean, you look at this last weekend, teams like Purdue, Indiana,
Rutgers.
Right. You have a lot of these teams on the bubble, and like Purdue, Indiana, both at home, a win could have gone a long way for them getting in, and they lost. When winning was absolutely needed. So why not give some of these mid-major teams that have been consistently good all year, like Northern Iowa, a spot in the big dance?
They deserve it.
Over some inconsistent major schools.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, with that being said, like you just said, a lot of the mid-major tournaments are done. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go through each conference tournament, point out some exciting matchups, list what some teams have, and then me and Andrew are both going to give a prediction for who we think will win each conference tournament. So I'm going to start out with the Big Ten. Obviously, we got an IU fan in here, Andrew, Purdue fan here, and I think the Big Ten is just outright most loaded conference. So I think it's a good place to start. I think when you look at this tournament, you have the top 4 seeds are all extremely good. They're all ranked top 15. But Indiana, and I'm not just saying this because I don't like him, Indiana's going to have to be careful. Indiana fell off to the 11th seed.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, they're projected like a 10 seed, but they're on the bubble.
I'm sorry, but you do not give a tournament bid to the 11th best team in the Big Ten.
No, it doesn't matter how good any conference is. The 11th best team should not be in. And I've been trying to say this because people always saying, oh, you're saying this because you're a Purdue fan. I mean, when you look at the net ratings and all this, Purdue and Indiana should be looked at equally. So if Purdue's not in, Indiana shouldn't be either. If Indiana's in, Purdue should be, in my personal opinion. And so what I was about to say with Indiana is they've already beaten Nebraska twice this year, and they have to play them again in the first round.
It's hard to beat a team twice, let alone 3 times.
Right. And it's going to help Indiana and Purdue both. It's at Bankers Life this year in Indianapolis. So they're going to have a lot of fans.
Speaking of that, we're heading to that game.
Yeah, we're going to be at that game. We'll be at the Northwestern Minnesota game too.
You can check us out on Twitter.
Yes, always on Twitter. So I think as far as the Wednesday games go, I think the Indiana-Nebraska game, I think Indiana wins, but they can't walk in there thinking they're going to win.
Well, that's the thing Indiana has to do is make a run in this tournament.
Right. Same with, I think Purdue's lost to Rutgers. They're going to have to make a run to the championship of this tournament. They may not have to win it, but they're going to have to make a run. So I think as potential matchups go, I'd like to see Iowa play Illinois. Obviously I want Purdue to win, but I think for quality of game's sake, I kind of want to see an Ohio State-Michigan State game. I would like to see Penn State play Maryland. And then the teams to watch in the Big Ten, in my eyes, are kind of that top 6. You have Maryland, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Illinois, Penn State, Ohio State. The issue with Penn State right now is we don't know if Watkins is going to play. He was suspended going into the last game when they just absolutely laid an egg against Northwestern. And we don't know if he's going to be able to play. They haven't really announced that. So if Watkins can't play, they could lose. That's going to hurt their seeding. I mean, Ohio State's big thing is Caleb Wesson. The team kind of rolls with him. Illinois, that's kind of surprised they're even playing the way they are. Michigan State's good every single year. Maryland, they have their years. They have Anthony Cowan Jr. He's a Wooden finalist. But then speaking of Wooden finalists, you have Michigan State, who had high expectations to start the year. And they've kind of faded off. But then recently, they've won 5 straight. They're 7th in NCAA's net rankings, 9th nationally. They're 2nd seed overall in the tournament. And you have someone like Winston on your team.
Cassius Winston is an outstanding college guard.
100%. Any other year, I'd be all for saying this is Michigan State's. But when you look at a team, in my eyes, I'm going to pick Wisconsin here. I'll give you why, and then Andrew can make his pick. I like Wisconsin because it seems like Wisconsin has a little bit of everything. And that's why I kind of expect Wisconsin to make one of those runs in the tournament. They have, first of all, they don't have one. They have 2 big men that are good. They have Nate Reavers, Micah Potter. And then they have a good guard in Trice. And then they have that glue guy that you see succeed in the NCAA tournaments. They have Brad Davison. I know a lot of people don't like him. Kind of controversial a little bit.
Well, Wisconsin's winning quite in a lot of ways.
Right. They have everything. They have every aspect of the game that you kind of need. So in my opinion, I like Wisconsin. They're the 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament. Rightfully so, 18th nationally. So I like Wisconsin. What about you?
Well, obviously, Greg Gard over in Wisconsin is an outstanding coach. Does it every year. He's really been outstanding over in Wisconsin. But Tom Izzo and Michigan State, I'm going to have to go with them. That's a matchup I would like to see in the tournament. That would be my preferred championship game. That's the only way they can see each other. But I'm going to go with Michigan State.
And there's no bad answers there.
I love Cassius Winston.
He's
that dude can
a
play.
Great player. So next I'm going to move on to the ACC. This isn't your typical ACC conference this year.
It's true.
Used to, Big Ten and ACC are always right there. They both have 6-7 teams that get in. But, I mean, this year, if they're not careful in their own tournament, they could have 4. And, I mean, obviously Duke's there. You can't look past Virginia. Virginia's won it all last year.
Their struggle is on the offensive end.
Right. And, I mean, last year they weren't the best. I mean, definitely drop off. Virginia started the year not good. I mean, it makes me happy to say it. Came into Purdue, walked out with a 29-point loss. They lost a lot of games.
They've really come on strong.
But exactly. Recently they've been playing extremely well. They just beat Louisville 2 nights ago on Saturday. They're up to 17th now nationally. Their strength of schedule, as far as that goes, it could be better. They're 42nd in the net ratings. But they're one of those teams you know they're going to defend. Like, that is Tony Bennett's identity.
Oh, yeah.
Is play hard on the defensive end.
And they're so long on the defensive
Exactly.
end.
So it literally comes down to if they can find a way to hit shots. Florida State, they're one of those teams that they kind of have done it all, like throughout the year, as far as strength of schedule, all that.
Including lose to Indiana.
I was about
somehow.
to say they had that strength of schedule. They beat Purdue at the Coastal Classic in Florida. Then they had to go into Assembly Hall, which is not easy, which Indiana obviously won. But aside that loss to Indiana, they're still 10th in the net ratings. Which obviously, I mean, I'm going to keep bringing that up. Net ratings, strength of schedule, margin of victory.
Those are all
wins.
factors that
Right.
the committee puts into choosing
100%.
who makes the tournament.
So you have Florida State, you have someone like Louisville, Duke. Duke's going to compete every year, 1, because they get talent, 2, because they have arguably the greatest coach ever in college basketball.
Who you could also make the argument is not doing that great of a job with this year's group.
Right. Well, I think you can make that argument for the last 4 years.
It's true.
I mean, last year I thought for sure was a shoe-in they'd win with all that talent they had. But I think the beginning of the year, my pick was Louisville to win it all. And they started hot. They've kind of fallen off a little bit, but I think I'm going to go with Louisville to win this tournament, and I'm going to go with Louisville to win it all. Now, winning it all depends on draw, truthfully. So it's hard to say. I think they're my top team to watch, I guess, right now, as far as the national tournament goes. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll pick Louisville. They have Jordan Nwora. He's going to be extremely he playful. Like, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Nwora's going to be good. He's going to be good in whatever tournament he's in. So I like Louisville to win this, potentially win it all. What about you?
I'm just going to go with Duke. I can't go against Duke.
Yep. And it's not a bad answer because Duke is Duke at the end of the day.
They're a good team. Trey Jones, Vernon Carey.
The Big 12, this is kind of an interesting conference because there's 10 teams, and Kansas has arguably been the most dominant team all year. They're first in their ratings, first nationally. And then you have Baylor, that's also in the conference, who was undefeated up till probably 2 weeks ago maybe. And I think they've dropped 4 straight now, including a loss to West Virginia, who I'm also about to bring up. West Virginia's been coming hard recently. They're 22nd now in the AP poll, 17th in net ratings.
Bob Hudson's team.
He's a great coach. Love that guy.
Yes, he is.
And then I really feel like those are your 3 you have to watch. At the end of the day, I'm going with Kansas, but you cannot count out Texas Tech because all Chris Beard has done since he got there
Texas Tech
has been crazy. I mean, last year, obviously they lost Jarrett Culver, but Texas Tech was a national runner-up last year. And they have a couple of those guys from that.
Easy to forget after losing a guy like Jarrett Culver.
Right. So right now, Texas Tech is just outside the top 25, but they are 22nd in the net ratings, which again goes the whole length of the season. Who have they played? How much have they won by? How much have they lost by? So Texas Tech, you can't count them out. West Virginia, you can't count them out. I think it comes down to Kansas and Baylor, and I like Kansas just because of their dominance throughout the year.
Well, didn't Kansas beat Baylor earlier in the year?
Yes.
Yeah, I like Kansas as well. I love their rim protector. What's his name?
Azubuike.
Yep, that's my guy.
Yep. All right, next conference we're going to go with SEC. Again, this is not one of your typical SEC years. I feel like normally you kind of have that 5-6 range of teams in. But this year, really kind of in my eyes, I think you have a team like Mississippi State and you have a team like LSU in Florida. And Tennessee's been playing good recently. You have a couple teams that could make the tournament pretty easily. You're probably going to. But you don't have a bunch of contenders. I think you look at the SEC and they have 2 true contenders. And that's Kentucky and that's Auburn. And again, when it comes down to great coaches, Bruce Pearl is a good coach. Actually, he's a great coach. But Auburn doesn't have John Calipari. I mean, that dude has won from the beginning.
Yes.
And I think I like Kentucky winning this conference regardless. And they're another one of those teams that could step up and end up winning it all. But that's going to depend on Ashton Hagans. Right before their game there tonight, Calipari made a tweet saying that Hagans kind of was dealing with some things. He was going to be out for a little bit, but that they needed him back for like 100% in the tournament. So I don't know if he's going to for sure play, but they're going to need him if they want to make a run. But I will take Kentucky in the SEC.
I hate to agree because I really like this Auburn team. But, yeah, Kentucky is going to win this tournament.
All right, so we're going to move on to the Big East. And in my eyes, I think the Big East is probably the second most loaded conference this year. So I really like that Marquette-Seton Hall matchup in the quarterfinals. Seton Hall was another one of those teams that started really good. Seton Hall, they have Miles Powell, who could end up being a pretty high draft pick. He's got his name in the conversation for Player of the Year. They're 15th in the net rating, 16th nationally,
But they're going up against a Marquette
Marcus
team.
Howard.
Yes,
They're basically going up against Marcus Howard, who we've seen absolutely go off at times. So I think it's going to be fun to watch someone like Marcus Howard go up against Miles Powell. I like Seton Hall in that matchup. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Villanova team we see in both tournaments.
Oh, yeah.
Because Villanova is one of those teams, they've been very inconsistent. And as of late, they kind of came on. But we're going to have to see. Creighton just had a big win over Seton Hall, who I've been talking about. And I don't know. It's kind of one of those tough conferences to judge. And then again, so this conference has several contenders. You have Creighton. You have Seton Hall, you have Marquette, because Marquette seems to have that guy, kind of like Purdue did last year, that can single-handedly win you games in a tournament. And then obviously you have Villanova, and a team that started really, really, really hot is Butler.
Yeah, I like Butler. I do.
I think my sleeper pick is Butler to win this tournament, but I think I'm going to take Seton Hall. I like Miles Powell a lot, so I'm going to take Seton Hall in this tournament.
I'm going with Butler.
You're going to go with Butler? Not a bad pick. I think they're a team that's going to surprise a lot of people. And then last conference, Pac-12, it's really such a weak conference this year. I mean, they have a team like Oregon. I'm just straight to it. Oregon's going to win this tournament in my eyes. And I think
UCLA has been coming on strong.
That's what I was about to say. I think the one thing you have to watch if you're Oregon is a team like UCLA who's on the bubble, and they know they have to win. They really need to win this tournament if they want to, you know.
They've won 8 out of their last 10.
Yep. I mean, Mick Cronin came from Cincinnati last year. I liked him at Cincinnati, and I like him even better at UCLA. It's surprising to me. Alfred brought in someone like Tiger Campbell out of La Lumiere a couple years ago. This is Tiger's now freshman year. He didn't end up playing for Alfred. So I think it's crazy to me what Cronin is doing with some of this talent that he didn't even bring in. So, I mean, I think Oregon has to be careful of UCLA, but at the end of the day, UCLA doesn't have Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard has been a stud this whole year. He's a Wooden finalist. I think he may end up being the one who will win it. He's a Pac-12 Player of the Year, 21 points a game, 4 yards a game, 6 assists per game. And they also have people like Will Richardson, Chris Duarte, kind of complimenting him. And they're another one of those teams. They're 12th in the net ratings. They've kind of done it all throughout the year. So I like Oregon. I think Oregon wins that conference.
I agree, but I'm going with UCLA.
All right. I mean, that's really it. Again, there's so many. I mean, we sat here and we discussed options, but this would be the year you'd see a team like Indiana make a run to the tournament, like make a run to the championship of the Big Ten.
They need it.
Yeah, like in this crazy of a college basketball year, we just talked about the favorites. Well, there could be and I'm sorry, I just completely forgot. I didn't say anything about Iowa in the Big Ten.
There are tons of good teams in the Big Ten. It's easy to forget them.
Right, like Luka Garza he may end up being the Player of the Year now that I think about it. And
it's true.
So I don't know how I just missed him. I apologize, but
Luka Garza is a guy I wouldn't mind seeing in Green next year. Regardless, you're right. We've watched it all year. The NCAA, those top seeds have been going down. It seems like every week.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch the whole tournament. So it's going to be a fun week ahead.
Conference tournaments before Sunday.
Sunday. I'm excited.
Selection Sunday.
And I mean, that's it.
And we will come out with our brackets for that over the weekend.
Post them on Twitter.
And we look forward to it. Make sure to keep listening to us at YouTube.
Give us a share.
Absolutely.
Follow us on Twitter if you haven't already at ST2. I mean, if you're here, you probably have seen us from Twitter.
Smalltown Sportstalk.
I think that's it.
Thank you very much for listening. I'm Andrew Willett with Jonah Freeman.
Adios.